The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
BronxNet. Your voice, your views, your vision.
Good evening and welcome to BronxTalk, the Bronx's flagship television talk show. Because of the special nature of our program tonight, we will not be taking phone calls, but you can have your say by emailing comments to us at BronxTalk@hotmail.com, and we'll read those on the air during a future edition of our program. Well, over the last 15 plus years, BronxTalk has been the home of political discourse and debate in the borough of the Bronx. And tonight we continue that tradition, presenting a debate between the Democratic candidates running in the 76th Assembly District that includes the central Bronx neighborhoods of Parkchester, Castle Hill, and West Farms. The challenger is Louis Sepulveda. Good evening, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good.
And the incumbent Assemblyman Peter Rivera. Good evening. Thank you for joining us, sir. And welcome back to the program. In tonight's debate, we'll address a question to alternating candidates, and after the answer, there'll be a short, free-flowing debate. Each candidate will also have a chance to deliver a closing statement at the end of our program. The questions tonight include those submitted by the candidates themselves. As always, our objective is singular, to give voters a chance to learn about those who seek to represent them. By prior agreement, the first question will be addressed to Mr. Sepulveda. Thank you again for joining us.
Sure.
Let's get right to it. You cast yourself as a political outsider, an attorney, not a politician, you say. Yet you're applying now for a job as a politician. There's no running away from it. Winning considerations for your issues as well as resources for your district requires political savvy and experience. Just providing some contrast, your opponent had not been in favor with the county's largest political party and more recently has been able to negotiate political peace. Isn't this evidence of his political skill, something you don't have a track record on, and something that, in fact, you say you're not even interested in?
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to correct you. Didn't include the area of Van Nest as part of the 76
There are
Assembly
many
District.
neighborhoods. There are 62 in the Bronx. We could certainly list them all, but go ahead.
Sure. I have been involved in elected official Bronx politics for many years. I've worked for 3 state senators. I have assisted in drafting legislation. I have worked in the community for many years, helping individuals both in small natures like court battles, in drafting legislation that helps seniors. I understand the nature of politics. I was counselor to the Bronx Democratic County Committee for several years, and so in that experience, I've developed enough savvy to understand what's required in order to be an effective legislator. Also, in my dealings up in Albany and in the state senate, more particularly, I've had a front view of what is required to assist in passing legislation and the give and take that's required in order for you to be an effective legislator.
Mr. Rivera?
Well, that sounds very interesting and very good, but the truth of the matter is that when you look at experience, you can't compare my experience to my opponent's experience. Currently, I am the Speaker Pro Tem of the New York State Assembly. So that you know what the Speaker Pro Tem of the New York State Assembly means, I am 4th in line to become governor of the state of New York per statute. I've sat on very important committees. I was the chairman of the Mental Health Committee. I was the chairman of the Committee on Cities, and I was the chairman of the Real Property Taxation. So I know how to craft legislation. I have crafted legislation. When NYPIRG, and you know what NYPIRG is, Gary. NYPIRG is an organization that is a watchdog organization in Albany. And NYPIRG rated all the state legislators in the state of New York, all 212 state legislators. I was in the top 5% of legislators in being able to not only create legislation, but pass legislation with this governor and with the prior governor. So I have a proven track record as to not only being able to pass legislation, important legislation that my colleagues can't pass, but I also have the ability to have led the state assembly.
Well, let's be honest about something, Mr. Rivera. Let's compare your record, what you were doing when you first became an assemblyman, and what my record is.
18 years ago, right?
Well, my record, yeah, but in 18 years, you've taken a lot of insurance and lobbyist money, and you've killed legislation that's helped our district because they
Which
have,
one? Which one?
They
Be specific. Be specific.
Let's talk about the Medicaid program, the prescription price program that you killed because the insurance and the Medicaid lobby.
I killed it.
Yeah, you were the workhorse on that program. The insurance lobby and the pharmaceutical lobby gave you over $25,000 when this program was trying to be implemented, and they used you as the workhorse to kill the program, knowing full well that people in the district, our poor people, our poor seniors need cheaper prices for Medicaid prescription drugs, and you killed the program because your vote was up for sale with the pharmaceutical lobby.
I have no idea.
But more experience. Let's talk about my record.
Let's let
let me address the issue. My record when I get elected, and his record when he was first running for office, he was an owner of a company that was involved in nightclubs that brought seedy elements to our district. He is also let me finish.
Go there because
Mr. Rivera also is and has been a collections lawyer for hospitals. So if people cannot pay their bills, they hire him to go after them. So that's the experience difference when I get elected.
This is the kind of campaign that he's running, by the way. It's a seedy campaign. He talks about seedy. It's a seedy campaign. He's talking about the fact that I, as a lawyer, I want you to know that I have been a leader as a lawyer. I was appointed by Governor Cuomo to be one of the members of the Chairman's Committee on the Judiciary, the Governor's Committee on the Judiciary. I was president of the Puerto Rican Bar Association. I have held many, many, many leadership positions in the judiciary as an observer of the judiciary and as a lawyer. So I trivialize what my opponent is saying about me as a lawyer.
Well, let's say you've also been a big.
Let me finish. I let you finish. I let you finish.
You've also been a donor.
I let you finish.
All the legislators in Albany,
I guess this is
as a New York Times,
shouting match, and I am not going to engage in a shouting match.
You have received more monies from pharmaceutical companies than anyone else in the assembly, Mr. Rivera.
Please allow him to just respond, and then we'll go to the next question.
I have no concept of what he's talking about with this whole Medicaid. I have been a strong advocate of Medicaid. I have analyzed what Medicaid does. I have done various studies of what Medicaid does in our community and the impact that Medicaid has in our community. And you very well know, if at the very least, that Medicaid, and he talks about Medicaid, he has no understanding of what Medicaid is. 90% of Medicaid is spent on the elderly, the unemployed, and single mothers. So he's talking about that he is going to impact
people
on Medicaid.
Over 65 years
that
old.
That is by federal statute.
No, I didn't say anything about impacting, Mr. Rivera. I know the difference between Medicaid and Medicare a lot better than you.
Give you the final
Mr.
word.
Rivera,
15
you have
seconds
18 years of experience, and you have $54,000 in campaign contributions to finance your vehicles, $9,000 on trips to the Caribbean, $9,000 on fancy meals and health spa. So yes, you have 18 years of experience, but you have over $100,000 in monies that you use that are not directly related to campaign expenditures.
It's going to be my next question, so let me just formally ask the question, and you can respond to that. As he has just raised, and I had it on my list to ask you, that he says that you purchased a car with campaign funds, used trips to go to Puerto Rico, and he says, as he indicated here, is a misuse of those funds. Have your campaign funds been used for those expenditures? And while not illegal, is it an example to voters that you have your own, not their best interests in mind?
I have sat on 4 major leadership committees throughout the United States. I'm a member of NALEO, the National Association of Latino Elected Officials, the oldest Latino elected official organization in the United States. I'm a member of NHCSL, the National Hispanic Caucus of State Legislature. I'm a member of BHCC, the Board of Hispanic Caucus Chairs, and I'm a former chair of the Somos El Futuro Conference. It's a misnomer because it's really the New York State Assembly caucus of Hispanic and Puerto Rican Hispanic state legislators. As those titles indicate, I am caused to travel throughout the United States, throughout the state of New York. I have been from Buffalo to Brooklyn, from Long Island to every other part of the state on a regular basis. I was the chairman of the Somos El Futuro Conference for 8 years. Now, I don't get reimbursed for that in any way, shape, or form by the State Assembly. I have to do that on my own pay for it for my own. I have been to conference after conference. I took the Chancellor of the State of New York to New Mexico to review the college system in New Mexico. I pay for that through my campaign funds, and I brought people to do that. I cannot be criticized for that.
That is a smoke screen. The reality is that there's nothing in all these titles that he lay here that said that he is entitled to drive around in a Mercedes-Benz and an Audi and spend $54,000 on campaign contributions for that.
Over 18
there
years.
There is nothing
over 18
nonsense.
Years.
Recently, less than 2 years ago, $24,000 in a payment for a vehicle. Mr. Rivera, I let you answer. $54,000. That is insane. That is tax-free money that he's using to benefit his lifestyle. $9,000, which includes a health spa. He gets parking tickets. He causes a transportation expense. Why can't he lease a vehicle that costs $99 a month? Why does he have to have a fancy vehicle and finance his fancy lifestyle from campaign contributions?
That is the kind of campaign that he's going to run. Okay? And I'm ready for that kind of dirt
It's not dirt, Mr. Rivera.
campaign.
That's the reality.
I
asked people to go to your
You said I had the last word. He's not willing to abide by the rules here. That's the kind of person that I'm running against. Person who doesn't understand what the rules are and is willing to ignore the rules no matter what the rules are.
Mr. Rivera, you like to use monies that don't belong to you for your personal lifestyle, and shame on you when you have people in our community that can't pay their rent.
What did I say? That he was going to break the rules, that he was not going to abide by the rules, and that he wants the last word.
Let's take our gloves and have a discussion.
Pure nonsense. Pure nonsense. Pure nonsense. Pure nonsense.
You should not be using
and the people that are watching
money.
this are going to listen to this and say, bah.
Mr. Rivera,
Mr. Sepulveda,
your monies, the campaign monies that you've used are given to you by the lobby.
Can you take control of this?
The lobby.
Gary, can you take control of this and prevent this jerk from trying to have some control over this?
Let's just try to have you can disagree, but let's try to do it in a way that everybody will hear what everybody's saying. So now it's your turn to be addressed. You work in Senator Ruben Diaz's office as a volunteer providing legal services. And in fact, Senator Diaz has endorsed you in this race. Right. Clearly, he's the most outspoken opponent to gay marriage. So what is your stance? And if your view opposes his, by simply working in his office, aren't you simply bolstering the profile of someone you would disagree with, which really is the height of hypocrisy? I guess what I'm saying is, because of his leadership on this issue, you can't be a supporter of Senator Diaz and not accept that you're a part of a network that opposes gay marriage.
Oh, of course you can. One of the senator's employees, closest friends, is Christopher Lynn, who is an openly gay member of our district. And he was a former commissioner who was openly gay. And there's nothing contradictory about that. So I don't understand your position.
What is your view?
My position is if I get legislation on gay marriage, I'll see what the legislation provides and decide at that point. I'm not going to decide on that now because I don't know what's before me. Listen, I have family members. I have a brother who's gay, who's HIV positive, and I understand how discrimination affects him. And so, but I cannot answer on something now that I haven't seen. When it goes before me, if there's a bill that I approve, then I'll decide then whether or not I'm going to do it.
There have been a number of bills, certainly in the state, in both the Assembly and the Senate. I mean, it's not a secret what the content of these bills are. Mm-hmm. If you had been a legislator at that time, how would you have voted?
The bills that I've seen, I probably would have voted against it, but that doesn't necessarily mean in the future I would vote in favor of it.
What would be a change to a bill like that?
Well, Gary, I have to see what the bills are. You're asking me to do something theoretical. I have to see exactly what the bill would require.
Well, I was saying, what would make it so that it would be acceptable?
Again, I'd have to see what's before me before I could answer that. But I want to elaborate on something because I didn't get an opportunity.
As you can see, this is a cop-out. And that's what this campaign is going to be a pure cop-out on everything. The bill is very simple. It's called the Gay Marriage Bill. It gives gay couples the same rights, the same responsibilities that other couples have in the state of New York. Pure and simple. It's the bill that was there this year. It's the bill that was there last year. It's the bill that's going to be there tomorrow. Now, it's not going to change because the advocates of this legislation are not going to change. And he has a problem in answering your question. What he said was, well, I have to see the bill before it comes before me. I'm not sure. I have to see if it can change. It's not going to change. His godfather, Ruben Diaz, is the leader the godfather of anti-gay marriage. I'm very clear. I voted for this bill. I will vote for this bill tomorrow. He's not willing to vote for it. So let's be clear. He's on one side of this equation, and I'm on the other side of the equation.
You want to be critical of Senator Diaz? Go right ahead. You should run against him if you feel that way. But I'll tell you something. The way you've been a legislator, you cannot compare. You cannot tie Senator Diaz's shoes. All right, Senator Diaz is a man who has worked for this community, has provided services to the community, and looks out for his community. You fought sure on that issue. But let's get back to the issue about campaign contributions and how he uses them.
That's really
but I didn't get my opportunity to finish it. The problem with that is that Mr. Rivera, because these pharmaceutical lobbies and these insurance lobbies are giving him so much money, when programs are being attempted to implement,
are we a one-issue, Gary? Are we a one-issue?
The money that they use,
are we a one-issue candidate?
The money, no, the money that I didn't get an opportunity to answer. The money that they gave him,
back to the same issue.
It makes him beholden to the pharmaceutical lobby.
You mentioned that before, so this is not going in the same. Let me.
Well, let's talk about other issues.
Well, I will be glad to present
them. Hang on
there.
You're losing control of this, Gary.
Mr. Sepulveda, you really have to
this.
play within the rules that we all agreed to beforehand.
Very good.
And I'm certainly going to ask that you stay to the issues that you're addressed, and also that you not interrupt each other. Okay.
Very good.
Mr. Rivera, there's been a lot of writing over the year about NETS, Neighborhood Enhancement for Training Services. According to media reports, the Attorney General's office is investigating what happened.
They're not investigating. That's over.
Okay. The question was about $1.3 million. Let me just respond.
You know more than I do, by the way.
Yeah, I think I knew about that issue.
$1.3 million in funding that apparently, at least according to media reports, went to employ your son and other campaign workers, ultimately delivered no programs to the Bronx. The bottom line is, what happened to the funding, and what did NETS actually do for your constituents?
NETS ran tremendous program. NETS is not a new program. NETS is over 20 years old, maybe 30 years old. Okay, it has provided GED programs. It has provided a whole slew of computer programs, programs for the elderly, programs for kids, a sundry number of programs for everybody. NETS is like so many other organizations in New York State that rely on state government funding. And I funded the Parkchester Preservation Corporation. I gave them $2 million to build a recreation center in Parkchester. That money is still laying there, is laying fallow, because they have not been able to put their act together. I have done this with 4 or 5 or 6 different organizations. I get accused of NETS, but this is true of so many different organizations that really rely on one source of fund, which is state government or federal government or local government funding, and they have a real hard time in being able to.
Have the programs been effective?
They have been tremendously effective.
Then why doesn't the media know that and keep
Because people like my opponent harp on this issue and make it a campaign issue. During the year, it's not a campaign issue. During election time, it becomes a tremendous campaign issue.
Your response?
First of all, I've not discussed NETS in any way, fashion, and form, and I'll do it today. The reality is that he was being investigated because NETS became an employment agency for his family and his campaign workers. That's essentially what happened. Now, for several years now, he's indicated that NETS is going to open. NETS is going to open. He's told several of the local journals that it's going to open, yet we're still waiting. It's closed, it's abandoned, and we have no idea where those funds were. That is typical of what Mr. Rivera does in the district. He neglects the district, he makes a big show, and then nothing happens.
You were asked the question. You can respond if you'd like.
I will answer it, okay? NETS is funded. NETS is funded adequately. Getting the money from the state government at this juncture right now is almost impossible, not only for NETS, but from every single agency. As you know, the governor vetoed all member items in this year's budget, as you know that, because I'm not telling you something that is novelty. It's a matter of news. Notwithstanding that, NETS has assets, NETS has programs, and it'll continue to function either through city funds or through federal funds.
NETS is defunct. It doesn't exist.
And by the way, the whole story of any investigation, there are no investigations going on.
Mr. Sepulveda, recently the State Department of Education revealed that gains to education test scores in New York City were a mirage, and our children are not doing as well as we might have thought.
Right.
Give me a plan to improve education for the children of the 76th Assembly District.
Sure. First of all, the problem with the numbers was that the scores were skewed in a way that didn't accurately reflect what the performance of the children were. And so now that they've adjusted that, then now you have closer numbers to what actually the reality is. I'm a proponent of charter schools, and I believe that we can take the good things of the charter school, even though they get accused of being an elitist program. There's nothing further for the truth. Generally speaking, people who attend charter schools, these are students who would be attending public schools, and so I would be a proponent of increasing the cap and putting as many charter schools in the district. Parkchester has one of the best charter schools in the entire country, and we can take from that model and use it for other schools, for other academic programs. Mind you, I'm also an adjunct college professor at Mercy College, so I'm fully aware of the importance of an education, and I'm always encouraging students to go to school, to get an education, and help them when they apply for law school and other postgraduate programs.
Mr. Rivera.
The answer, there's several answers to public education, to education of our kids. One of the biggest responses that we have to focus on and that I have focused on is parental involvement. We passed charter legislation. I insisted, I made sure that part of that charter legislation had a place, had a position, had a area that parental involvement is going to be part of it. It's going to be a central part of it. And we were able to do that. Aside from parental involvement, we have other areas to look at, which is, are we spending the money the way we should be? My colleague says, my opponent says that, without answering the question, that he likes the way education is appearing.
No, I never
in the
said
76
that.
Assembly
No, do not
District.
put words in my mouth, Mr. Rivera.
Can I finish?
Just finish
Sure.
the statement,
Never
and
said
then we'll
that.
give you the last word. Go ahead.
Sure.
My opponent said that he likes the way education is progressing in the 76th Assembly District. The 76th Assembly District is a microcosm of what's happening throughout the state of New York. And what's happening throughout the state of New York is that there are certain communities that are failing. And they're failing for obvious reasons. We don't have science, technology, engineering, and math. I have started 2 STEM programs in my district that address the area of the high school students.
Mr. Rivera, first of all, I would implement as many educational programs once I'm elected to the next assemblyman in our
Are you
district.
going to pay for it?
I have not been in a position to implement these programs, and you know that very well. The reality is that I'm a big proponent of education and a big proponent of parental involvement. I see the after effects of when students get educated in our public school system. And so I understand that, and I would work to improve those numbers and do whatever I can. Mr. Rivera's been in the district for a long time, and if the numbers are poor, he's partly responsible because he's not shown leadership in that area.
Mr. Rivera, final question of the evening. Like many districts in the Bronx, there's a housing shortage. Give me a housing plan for the 76th Assembly District that not only addresses the shortage for affordable housing, but also rescues the thousands of tenants who are living in substandard housing.
Well, I think we have a serious housing problem in the state of New York, not only in the Bronx, not only in my district. And the truth of the matter is that the federal government is walking away from housing. It has historically and traditionally been one of the stalwarts when it comes to housing. When you look at all the housing programs that exist in Mitchell-Lama.
About a minute and a half, so let's get to the point.
Is this the closing comment or?
No, then you'll have a chance to.
When you look at what's happening in housing, not only in my district, when you look at, I did a study, okay, on Hispanics and housing in the state of New York. And what we discovered is that Hispanics are victims of the housing problem. They pay the highest mortgage rates. They have the most dilapidated housing.
Give me a solution.
The solution is to focus on what the issues are, what the problems are, to do studies like the studies that I have done, that have been done on a national level. Mm-hmm. We started in New York State. Now it's a national study that has been done, and focus on the issues that have been identified in that national study.
Again, Mr. Rivera, all he does is studies and studies and studies, and there's no action and there's no leadership. The reality is that he's had 18 years, he claims, to have an impact because he's now part of the leadership. And yet he's done nothing about it. There's been very little improvement in residential issues in our district.
How would you do it?
And that's because Mr. Rivera doesn't know very many people in the district. Unlike me, I've traversed my district. I've knocked on over 18,000 doors and spoken with people.
Because I have to move it along, do you have a suggestion or something that you would recommend?
We have to provide more affordable housing programs for people that are on the edge.
That sounds
he
does
not.
Very,
you see, he
that's
did not answer the question.
That's
he did not answer the question before, and he will not answer it now. He's had 18 years to do something.
That's a placebo.
18 years, he's done nothing about it.
Let's let him.
The truth of the matter is that you have to look at if you're looking at private housing, we've done that. We have looked at redlining. We have focused on redlining. We have focused on the mortgage payments that people are making. We have looked on the foreclosures that are occurring right now, and we have established within the court system a part in the court system that will deal with foreclosure.
you've done a
and
lot
that
of
has
looking.
been done by the Assembly of
Mr. Rivera, there's a lot of looking for very little action.
We're at the point now where you can deliver your closing statement.
Sure.
You have just a minute to do that, and then we'll have Mr. Rivera do the
Sure.
same. Thank you for your time.
Sure. I'm running for the 76th Assembly District because I am tired and fed up with elected officials like Mr. Rivera who become Assembly people and then disappear and then engage in policies and propose bills or kill bills that impact our community in a negative way. Cuts the MTA program, get rid of the Metro cards for students. When the students protest and the parents protest, he got fearful. Then he sends a flyer throughout the district in a very disingenuous manner saying that he saved the Metro card program for students. No, he was part of the group of Assembly people that voted to cut the program, and now he wants to take credit for saving it. The 4% sales tax recently, he didn't show leadership on that. Shelley Silver told him, you got to vote this way.
15 more seconds.
And that's how he voted. So now residents of the district, right before back to school, now have to pay 4% more for programs because Mr. Rivera didn't show the kind of leadership that he was elected to do.
Okay.
It's an example of what he's done.
Thank you, sir.
And he's also...
Thank you
sir.
very much.
Mr.
As
Rivera?
you can see, he has no platform. His whole platform is anti-Pete Rivera, anti-Pete Rivera, anti-Pete Rivera. I'm running on my record. I'm running what I have done over the last 18 years. I'm running on the fact that as chairman of the Mental Health Committee, I brought money throughout the state of New York to look at when it comes to communities of color and the disparities that exist in communities of color when it comes to suicide. I provided over $1.5 million for suicide for who? For young Latino women who are the highest individuals that have that participate in suicide, right? And for the elderly Asian women. These are the two groups that have the highest problems when it comes to suicide. I have been a leader, and I have been recognized as a leader. When it comes to, as I indicated, when it comes to housing, I've been able to lead the state of New York when it comes to housing. When it comes to employment, we did a study when it comes to employment, and out of that study, communities of color, we were able to pass legislation that's going to have an impact, not only now, but in the future. We have changed the way affirmative action officers are recognized in the state of New York based on my studies and based on my legislation. When it comes to a whole slew of issues.
About out of time, sir.
Thank you.
Assemblyman Peter Rivera, thank you for your time. Mr. Louis Sepulveda, thank you for your time. And we certainly hope the people of the Bronx will get a chance to get out to the polls, and certainly in the 76th Assembly
Gary.
District.
Thank you,
many, many people should come out and cast their ballot on September 14th. If you have further comments or questions on anything you heard on tonight's show or anything going on in the Bronx, then email them to us at hotmail.com, bronxtalk@hotmail.com, and we'll read those on the air during a future edition of our program. Archives of Bronx Talk are available at blip.tv. Just search for Bronx Talk. Next week, we'll talk education and discuss those recent test score results on August 23rd. We'll have a wonderful program with a Bronx comic book artist and what he's doing to help Bronx children learn, and then we'll do some politics the week after that. Bronx Talk every Monday night at 9 for 15 years here on BronxNet Cablevision Channel 67 and Verizon Fios Channel 33. Special thanks to producer Jane Folloro and our usual cast of thousands who are up there in the booth. To you, good night.